Hey, it's me again. Looks like it's gonna start raining here any second. I'll try to get this done before it starts raining. Oh, actually, here it goes. Anyway, this is a really cool story. It's a story that took place down in Fillmore, Utah. It's about two cattlemen that were bringing in their cattle all from the different ranges and getting them together before the snow came. But unfortunately, a big snowstorm hit while they were doing this, and it was so bad that they couldn't see where they were going, so they just decided to let their reins go and let the horses go where they wanted to. And sure enough, the horses did find shelter, and where they found shelter, they also found some pretty cool stuff. They found gold bars. Without further ado, it's starting to come right now, the rain. I'll let you go. Very bad I have to be.
Kids.
This next subject we're going to talk about is the Fillmore.
Yeah.
And I know that this one means a little bit more to you than the other ones, because you said you had maybe related to some of the people in the story.
Well, it's connected to it, and we'll get to that. But yeah, my third great-grandfather was in the same area, and his story added to the story in helping us to understand where this could be.
Oh, I see. So he kind of verified or seconded.
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
added to the story. Anyway, there were some cattle ranchers, and this is, I think, in the 20s, late 20s.
Okay.
And they were going up the mountain to get the rest of the cattle down off the mountain because winter was coming.
Sure.
In fact, they had a storm coming in that day, and they were coming down a side canyon, bringing the cattle out. They were camped down and in the main canyon, and the storm got so bad that when they turned into the main canyon, the snow was going sideways, hitting them in the face, and they just couldn't see where they were going. And then the horses were apprehensive about continuing, and they finally decided it was best just to let go of the reins and let the horses go for cover.
Right.
And when they did that, the horses turned around, went right back where they came from,
Up the canyon.
and heading up the side canyon,
Okay.
and took off on a side trail. And they noted that they went up a steep hillside, and then it started to taper off just as they were going into a grove of trees. And after getting into the trees away, the horses walked into an overhanging ledge of conglomerate. And they said it was pretty much sheltered from the wind and the snow.
So the cave was, or this this outcropping was big enough for them and the horses to ride right into.
From what I remember being told, the horses actually rode into this overhanging ledge while they were still mounted.
Wow.
And so, you know, it's a pretty big target to look for.
Yeah.
If that's true. Stories have a way of being changed, but anyway, they got off their horses, and one of the cattlemen noticed a hole back in the back of this overhanging ledge, and they went and took a peek in there and found out it was big enough to crawl back in, and so they crawled back in this hole and proceeded to build a small fire and
keep warm.
And figured they'd just wait the storm out. Well, while they were in there, they made some makeshift torches and decided to explore a bit because it obviously had tunnels. And so they started thinking, well, this could be an old mine. And as they were searching through the tunnel, one of them tripped over something and, you know, caused him to stumble and almost fall. And holding the light up to it, they could tell it was a pyramid stack of gold bars.
Wow.
And while they were in there searching, they found 2 more stacks. And as you know, most stories, for one reason or another, they didn't take anything, and then they come back and they can't find it again, right?
Right, it's the typical story.
Well, in this one, they gathered up as much as they could. They specifically pointed out that one of the cattlemen was stuffing bars down his pants. One of the bars slid down his pant leg and broke his foot. So
his pocket had a hole in it.
Well, think about the trousers you were wearing back then.
I know. Broke his foot.
We didn't have Depends and Hanes to help us out, you know. And, but anyway, they obviously got out of there with some of it. Some of the people that I talked to mentioned that during the Depression years, this family seemed to do pretty good. They didn't seem really affected by the Depression. And then when the anti-hoarding law came out about hoarding gold and silver, I don't know why they call it the anti-hoarding bill because, well, yeah, I do. It didn't mean you couldn't own gold. It meant they didn't want you hoarding it. And that's a long story, and so we're not going to get into.
Maybe we could do a story on that.
One of these days we might want to, but it goes back to the U.S. government complaining and
is it because they wanted
stating,
gold-backed money
well,
at the time?
They were claiming they were bankrupt. Okay, so anyway, it ties into the story of what happened to the Fort Knox gold, etc., etc. But anyway, they managed to do quite well during the Depression years, and from what I understand, it was 15 years before they went back up there, and they had made note of certain landmarks to help them find it again. But when they got back up there 15 years ago, the 2 brothers, I assume, all they could do was argue about what hill they were on. Now, the individual that shared the story with me, he's since passed away. But he told me that even Clint Walker had worked on that project. I don't know if you...
I don't know who Clint Walker is. Can you tell me who that is?
Do you remember one of the old westerns, black and white, the guy named Cheyenne? He's a big guy. When you look him up...
I'll look him up.
You'll look at him and go, oh, God, yeah, I remember him.
All our viewers are going, dumbass.
Yeah, but anyway, Clint Walker passed away probably about 6 years ago, 7 years ago. He actually was living down in Johnson's Canyon in southern Utah. So he was closer than we thought. But my buddy knew him, and he talked to him about it also. And I don't remember whether I received the story written down, but I wrote down what I was told. And then there was a map that went with it, a map that they had drawn showing the landmarks that they had recognized from the entrance of the cave.
So when they went back there, did line up and say, okay, yeah, this is what it looks like.
Well, yeah, and when we went up there, the way we decided where we needed to go is me and Amy decided to backwards analyze it, because we knew that you had to be able to see this feature, you couldn't see this feature, and there was another feature behind you and up to the left that you would be able to see from the cave. And so we kind of backwards analyzed that and went across the canyon and found a road that was in the location we needed to be, and just turned around and looked back the other way, and we knew that it's got to be right in this area right here. And so we planned a trip in there. I invited a friend to come along, one that I have since regretted taking with me, but we won't go there. He's got enough problems. We went back up, and as we followed the trail in, we come to realize that this wasn't an old Indian trail, as the Forest Service wants you to believe. And we knew it was an old Spanish cart trail.
That's what I was going to ask you next. Would you believe it was a Spanish mine?
Well, the reason we do is because as we were going in, we would find trail markers on the trees. And these are the typical line dot above it marker, which simply means mine ahead,
okay.
Keep going. But the interesting part is the one of the trees that we noted, the scarring or the bark had overgrown almost all the way through it, and
wow.
I've got some pictures you can use. And they were probably about 3.5 inches of overgrowth. And keep in mind, these are juniper, and the other is mountain mahogany. Both are very slow growers, okay? I called up my biologist, treasure hunting buddy, who worked for BLM for years and for the Fed for other years, and that was his job, is in part was dating trees.
Wow.
And so I took pictures of the leaves, and I sent those to him, and I asked what kind of trees these are, and he said, well, I didn't send him the juniper because I knew what that was.
That's the mahogany?
Yeah, I sent him the other one, and he says, well, that's mountain mahogany. And I said, well, I'm trying to figure out how old this carving is, and so I sent him a picture of that. And I told him it's about 3.5 inches of overgrowth and then down into the symbol. And he says, how big around's the tree, or the bush? He called it a bush. And this ain't no bush, it's a tree. And I says, looking at my hands, I'd estimate it's probably close to 18 inches in diameter. He says, holy crap. He says, that's big for mountain mahogany. I said, well, how old would you guess it is without core sampling it? He says, it's damn old. And so we just left it at that. You know, we was good with damn old.
Right.
And then there was a juniper with the same mark on it, and you could see where somebody had come in and tried to carve over it to, make it look more modern, but it was a very poor attempt. And
why would they do that? Why would they do that?
Well,
so they keep seeing it? It
could be that whoever did it thought that it was an old Forest Service mark, okay, when in fact it wasn't. And he might have thought that it just didn't stand out enough, and so he was going to carve over it and make it stand out more.
Right.
You know, we don't know.
Right.
But to me, it looked like it was an attempted cover-up.
Okay.
But no sooner than these markers quit, we didn't run into any more after that. Within, 100, 200 yards on the left-hand side of the trail is what I believe may be a mine location. Now, I didn't know it at the time because it was heavily covered in brush, and it just made for a really good place to get off the trail and, take care of your Mother Nature problems.
Right.
And it wasn't until the fire went through there probably 10, 11 years later that it just opened it right up, and you look at it and you go, that's an old mine. Not too far before you get to what I believe would be a mine location, there was some beautiful samples just right off the side of the trail that had just, I mean, beautiful rainbow colors, dark blues and purples and
So that
so
would
forth.
be like silver,
To me, it's a silver oxide,
right?
which means there's likely a hell of a good silver vein right there somewhere. So I took that rock and turned it over just so it didn't stick out like a sore thumb.
And you would think that this was in the tailings? That's where you found this
No,
rock?
it was before you get to
So
that
it maybe
point.
fell off a cart before it got to Arasta?
No, I think it's just laying right where it's supposed to be, natural, and that there's a vein there close by. It didn't look like anybody had carried it there, but I suppose it's possible. But we continued on the trail and past that point because we had to get over to a certain place. And when we got over there and to where we thought this was going on, we spotted a monument that was off the side of the trail, and it had an unusual feature kind of built into it, which was like an overhanging ledge. We thought that was kind of interesting. Somebody's destroyed it since then.
Oh, geez.
But I've got photos of it and a GPS coordinate, so no big deal. But I don't understand. I think maybe the cattle ranchers possibly got rid of it, knowing that, I don't know, maybe they were spying on us one day and they just don't like you in there. And not the cattle ranchers, but, you know, because we'd bring our four-wheelers in on the trail so far, and then after couple, 2 or 3 return trips, next thing you know, you see a homemade sign that says no motorized vehicles past this point. Well, we know damn well that the Forest Service doesn't go home in their garage and make a sign that says that.
Is it BLM?
It was not a BLM sign, so we just discarded it and threw it in the bushes. And after, I don't know, maybe a year later, now we have a bona fide BLM sign up there that says no motorized vehicles past this point. So I don't know. I think it's just the cattle ranchers, when they're on their way down, you know, they don't want to run into motorcycles, four-wheelers, especially if they're pushing cattle in front of them.
Right.
I mean, I get it, but and it didn't make it that any more difficult to get to, so it's just a little more walking. But we got over to the place where we thought we needed to be looking, and sure enough found some conglomerate and several possibilities of where it could be. I just don't think we've looked in the right place yet. I've had people go up there since. I had some guys go up and they spent a couple days up there, and they're convinced it's in another area, and that's fine. You know, if you think it's in another area, well then go and search it.
So are you saying this mine is probably the same hole that the Cowboys
I don't
had
think so.
Because first of all, I have a question. Like, if they walked in and on their horses, and there was it was big enough for them to do that, and you didn't see anything like that, obviously.
No. So just to make sure we're on the same page here, no, I do not think the mine, the supposed mine, is the location the horses rode into. We're not there yet. We're
Gotcha.
still, you know, half a mile away.
Okay.
Besides, I know they were in the trees. You know, looking at all the conglomerate that's in the area, your mind starts wandering. You know, were they over here? Did they go up there? You start deviating from the story as it was originally told, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, because you have to throw different perspectives at it, because you don't know how much the story has changed when it was relayed to you. So you look at possibilities. But I think there's one area up there that we've neglected, and if we stick with the original story, then it makes sense. But anyway, so not much has happened with that project since then, except not too many years ago, trying to remember how I came across the article. I think I was just doing some searching in the newspaper archives, and I don't remember what words I was using. I think I was looking for old Spanish mine stories and things like that, and I'm reading through it, and I know my ancestry pretty good. So, especially my ancestor, Daniel Buckley Funk. And I come across this article, and it seemed to be pretty interesting, so I started reading it, and it was a story about Brigham Young sending a group of men down to the Fillmore area to look at possibilities of settling. And so there wasn't anybody down there at the time. And he mentioned Daniel Buckley Funk. And I go, what? You know? And they tell this story about finding a trail that was going up one of the side canyons there. And I'm thinking, well, that's the same trail. And he said that one of the things they noticed on this trail is that somebody had been going up and down it with shod horses. He says, we knew the Indians didn't shaw their horses. So we're wondering who's up here with horses that are shod. And they went up several miles, and they got up to a side trail and noticed that that's where the footprints were going. So they started up the hill, and it was pretty steep, is what he said. I can't remember whether they mentioned going into thick trees, but going up that hill, they decided that maybe they better stop because these are fairly fresh footprints, and if it's a whole, platoon of Spanish soldiers, they were definitely outnumbered, and so they thought it would probably be best if they turned around and went back.
So what dates are we looking at, roughly?
You mean with Daniel Buckley Funk?
Yeah, and
back when the Mormons first got here.
1850s.
I'm not sure when Fillmore was settled, but I know it was the original first capital of Utah. And so it was probably there in the late 40s, 1840s, maybe early 50s. But you just have to go look and find out when Fillmore was founded.
Wondering if the Spaniards were truly here, at that time.
Oh, there's reports of them being here as late as 1920.
Wow, I didn't know that.
I've got maps that are dated 1871. The Arola family, I think the Ronaldos were up here in the 70s. I may have one more, Junipero Serra. But anyway, he goes back and he reports to Brigham, and Brigham once again tells him, leave it alone, don't go back up there. And according to the article, he later took his son back up there, who was also named Daniel Buckley Funk. And I'm not descendant from that son, but anyway, but he supposedly looked for it his whole life. As to where the Spanish were going, where there had to be a mine up there. Oh, I left one part out. On their way back down, they ran into an Indian, and either through sign language or an interpreter, the Indian, they asked him, who's been up here on this trail? And he told them the Spaniards, and he said, who made the trail? And they said, the Spaniards did.
The Indian said that the Spaniards made the trail, and made the...
Yeah, and they're the ones that had the shod horses, and he says they've been bringing the gold down this trail to a spring that's not too far down from where we are, and that's where they wash the gold.
Or made a slurry to smelt it.
Yeah, and so there has to be an arasta nearby, and there has to be a smelter nearby.
Okay, I have a question. When you were up on that trail walking, you saw the ore. It looks like it was silver, not gold. So do you think there's another?
Well, there's no gold oxide, so what do you look for?
Well, I'm just saying, if there's gold bars, I mean, there must be a different mine too.
You'd think so, but based on, see, I walked the upper trail, took the upper trail in, and followed it all the way to where the steep hill is. Daniel Buckley Funk went up the lower trail, if I'm not mistaken, and was going up that steep trail, and pretty much where we would have met if it was at the same time frame. Um, that would be at the top of the steep hill. So I just thought it was interesting that,
Yeah.
you know, he had walked this same trail.
That's kind of cool to have your.
Yeah.
You didn't even know it.
And I didn't know it for, well, I found out, I don't know, I'd have to go back and see when I wrote the article. But years after the story was relayed to us, and years after we had been up there. And along that trail we found 3 monuments. 2 of the monuments was kind of interesting because there was a certain feature that you were supposed to be able to see from the mine or the cave entrance, okay?
This is what the two cattle ranchers
Yeah,
noticed during
it's
the
one of their
winter.
clues that they had to help them find it again. And as we went up, we found a monument, but it had been pushed over. But what I noticed is right where that monument is, you lose sight of this feature. You can't see it because of the mountain gets in the way. And as soon as you get over to the other side and it comes back into view again, there's another monument. I thought that was a little coincidental.
Yeah.
Are they acknowledging the same feature that you can see way out there? Don't know. But and then there was 2, possibly 3 trees that had the sign on it that says "Mine Up"
Now,
or "Ahead."
now, if you went too far, is there going to be a tree that says "Mine" behind you? Maybe.
To this day, I cannot remember. Once we got over into the grove of trees, I started watching the trees again, thinking that if I pass the mine, I should be able to find another symbol that says the mine's this way.
Either on the reverse side of the tree going this way, or
Yes.
one saying turn around and go this way.
Well, it'd be on the reverse side of the tree looking back.
Right.
To this day, I can't remember whether we seen one.
Huh.
I would have to go all the way through the grove to where the hill starts to get steep, turn around and come back. And there's some curious places up there, but the guys that went up there, oh, I don't know, a year or 2 years ago, they said they went and investigated it and didn't see anything, but doesn't mean there isn't something there. I really need to see it for myself. So, and I'll probably hear from them after they see this.
So a really cool thing could be multiple things. Finding the Rasta near the water, and there must be a smelter.
Actually,
there.
that won't help any, but it would just validate the story.
Right. So there would be a smelter around there too.
There'd have to be.
Yeah. So that'd be down by the water as well.
Well, I need to go to the spring, and problem is, man, you go to the 2 smelters out here, and they've been grown over at least twice. The fire's gone through one of them once,
You know, they got
and it's still hard to find.
a lot of baby aspens coming up everywhere. I think it'd be a good thing to go there with some snippers and cut them all down. Otherwise, they're just going to remove the rocks. They're going to push everything over.
I know you want to do a video on looking for some other smelters, and we've got at least 2 more smelters possible smelters up there to go look for.
I'll bring some snippers then.
At the one location, there's actually 5, maybe even 6 smelters, but you can't distinguish them. Looking at them, you can't really tell they're
Because
smelters.
they've all fallen in.
They've fallen in. It's just a pile of rocks now. And but the one that's still intact, you know, it's obvious. I don't think you've been to that one.
No.
Well, that one's an interesting site because there's actually a trail that comes up and out of there, but we never knew this until the fire went through. And we went driving up there one day to go show somebody the smelter. I mean, that's typical trip up there. You bring somebody new and you go, oh, have you seen the smelter? And everybody wants to go see the smelter. And so you start kicking yourself because you know you've been there a million times and you just don't want to go anymore. Just like last time with you guys, that didn't work out so well, but you did find it.
We did find it, thanks to, was it Greg?
But if I don't go the exact way that I did the last time, then you're in trouble, and we couldn't do that because there was all those people in there.
Plus, those teeny little aspens. I mean, you couldn't even walk anywhere without
It
moving
still
around.
looks entirely different to me.
Yeah.
I've been there maybe 3 times after the fire, okay? And I still see it in my mind the way I first saw it, and it was a beautiful, lush green. There was a nice little swampy area out there that you could see from the smelter, and it was just beautiful. Now it's, you know, little aspens popping up everywhere.
And big trees falling over the top of it and stuff, so there's quite a bit of work maybe to save it a little bit.
Yeah. Who?
I can chop little aspens down with little snippers, but moving those logs would take 2 or 3 people.
I was waiting for that word, we.
Yeah, it'd have to take some people stronger.
But, you know, the more you show these things to people, sooner or later they're going to take someone, and then they're going to take someone. And every one of them, they go in there and they go, I wonder if there's any gold down in the bottom or any silver. You know, hey, let's go get a shovel and a metal detector and let's dig in the bottom of it.
And if they do it, they're just going to loosen the base rocks and it's just going to fall in.
And you get a few more rocks fall in. Just, God, leave it alone. You know, we were kind of sad when we went up there, I don't know, 2-3 years ago after the fire, and we couldn't see any of the rock that had the, what's it called?
The glaze?
The glazing on it. It was there, but we couldn't see it.
Is it black?
Well, we just couldn't see it.
Oh.
It wasn't as profound as when we first went up there. But, you know, we finally went around and started feeling some of the rock, and now I'm happy that there's still some full-size rocks there where it's glazed, and it feels like you're touching glass.
Yeah.
So,
I got some good pictures of that when I was.
Yeah, and I'd like to keep it there, you know. So I'm starting to get a little funny about taking people to those sites. If you don't know where it is, then I'm not sure I care. I want to be able to take my grandkids there someday and say, look.
Right.
And if you show it to anybody, I'll beat you with a switch.
So the Fillmore site, there's a couple of things. We're looking for a mine, more than likely a silver mine.
And we think we know where that's at.
If we follow the cart trail,
Cashe site.
there's a Cashe site. Yeah, obviously with a cave big enough to ride a horse, unless it's
Presumably.
unless it's collapsed.
And that's possible.
There's also supposedly a rasta down there if we follow the cart trail down towards the
There
water.
would have to, if he said they were washing the gold, then there's going to be an arasta, and you would think a smelter.
Right.
So.
Because they're not going to pack out just.
And I know where the spring is, or I know what spring it should be. There's actually 2, but only one really fits the bill, so I just don't have time for all this, and I certainly don't have the energy. So, yeah, I wish I could step back 20 years ago and go hit it again.
Fillmore's quite a drive down there too, isn't it?
No, it wasn't really that bad. I mean, I was driving from Cashe Valley down to there, so. But, you know, back then I did what I wanted to do and when I wanted to do it.
Right.
And I had a truck that got some really good fuel mileage, and it didn't bother me. We'd just go, I'd drive down there, and because I don't like driving that much to and from, I'd just go down and get a room and drive home in the morning. So,
Is there anything else on the Fillmore site you could think of?
there's another site not far from there where we have a reported Arasta, and we also found, I'm pretty sure that Daryl found these articles on another site that's not far from there. And we really don't have anything as far as a Cashe site goes, but it does mention some good producing mines. And apparently there were some young boys back in the early 1900s, okay, that were up there trying to catch a wild horse, or one of the horses had gotten away, something, but they were up there trying to catch it. And they were in a specific place, which they just got done describing where they were, so you know about where they're at from it, and that being the Arasta. And another feature that we won't mention yet, we'll talk about it in a little bit, but they were going up the trail and they could hear something coming down the trail, and it kind of spooked them, you know. They thought, who's going to be up here? And so they went and ducked into the bushes, and here come a mule train of Spaniards out of there with their mules and the pack saddles, and you know, they were taking a load out. And so I don't think the boys ever went and tried to find anything. In fact, as soon as they disappeared down the trails, them boys beat feet out of there because they didn't want anything to do with them. So, but I think that story got to another guy, and he eventually planned a trip in there, and he gives a little better instructions on how to get from point A to point B, and I'm pretty sure we found the locations of those mines, but
their condition is unknown.
I would love to go up and validate it, but why? You know, what would be the point?
I don't know. Finding another mine.
Another mine, so what? Big deal.
Especially if they're, you know, been collapsed in and there's nothing you can do
Well,
anyway.
I know one person that's going to get a kick out of this, but it's kind of like after going out and doing this as long as you have been doing it, and I've been doing it accidentally since I was, you know, 14 years old.
Right.
I spent a lot of my teenage years out in the West Desert and chasing old mines and running into little ruins and rock walls and things like that. And so when somebody contacts you on the radio and says, hey, you need to come and look at this, well, what do you got? Well, I don't know, it's a little rock wall. Well, take a picture. And I can understand they're on the other end and they're getting frustrated because you won't come and look at it.
Because they're a little bit more excited than you are.
Yeah. And to me, it's another rock wall.
Right.
And anyway, we're kind of thumbing through photos here about a week or two ago, and we had a good laugh over this. And he's kind of going through the pictures about like this, and he flips by one, and I go, whoa, 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 go back. And he says, what? You know, and he went back a picture or two, and I'm looking at this photo. He'd already showed me the rock wall. You know, this is the rock wall we were telling you about way back when.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at this photo, and it's up on a ledge, and it's a perfect circle. I mean, perfect.
Yeah.
But you can't tell if it's been chipped, whether it's been carved.
Because it had the moss in it.
Whether it's lichen. No, you could see a perfect circle. I'll show it to you.
I think I've seen it.
And you know, I know Mother Nature can make circles, but this thing was perfect. But the reason it sparked my interest is because I've always suspected that there are some writings on those ledges where he was. And that got me all fired up again on a project that I really haven't done much with since about 2006 or 2012. I can't remember. Um, yeah, about 2012. And God, there's not much more we can do. I mean, you can only stick a probe so far up the cow's ass, okay? um, pardon me. uh, but it just got me all stirred up over that project again, and that's one we were talking about here a week or so ago, 2 weeks ago, and then we decided we probably shouldn't do that interview.
No, not until we get permission. Not until we interview that individual.
Well, I think it would be better. I don't think we need permission, but it would be better if he was there. Because I've already made one blunder, and I'm going to pay for it for a long time.
No, we don't. I think, first of all, I need to get a hold of him, see if he wants to, and come down and go for a trip.
Just call him. You got his number.
Yeah.
So anyway, can't think of anything else concerning that story. But
Okay.
okay.